The sound of my cell phone alarm woke me up like a needle piercing a bubble of silence. I slowly opened my eyes, feeling the familiar pain in my abdomen. 2 weeks after the surgery, every movement was still a reminder of the trauma my body had endured. It took me almost a whole minute just to sit up in bed. Subscribe to the channel and leave your like to get access to more stories like this. Brian had already left for work. A note on the fridge read, "I called my mom. She's excited for Christmas here at home as always. Love you." I was paralyzed, the note trembling in my hand. Christmas. In our house. As always. The phone call came later that morning. "Sarah, dear," Margaret's voice sounded high and excited on the phone. "Brian told me about your little operation. You're doing better now, right? Because we need to finalize the Christmas menu. I'm thinking about that turkey you made last year, absolutely divine. Ashley is bringing Emma and Nathan confirmed he's coming too." "Margaret," I tried to explain, "the surgery was major. They had to remove—" "Dear, we've all been through things, haven't we? Remember when I had that cataract surgery and still managed to prepare Brian's birthday dinner? Anyway, I'm sending a list of everyone's preferences. Emma is now in that annoying teenage phase with food, so please, no nuts in the pie." I hung up the phone and dragged myself to the couch. Tears streamed silently down my face as the pain pulsed where the stitches were. I remembered all the other Christmases, the year I cooked while battling pneumonia, barely able to stand. Easter when I had a urinary tract infection and no one even asked why I was constantly using the bathroom. Brian's birthday when I prepared a feast 3 days after a concussion. My phone buzzed with messages from Ashley. "Hey Sarah, just checking that you're making your famous scalloped potatoes. It's the only thing Emma eats at Christmas. Oh, and Mom is allergic to pepper now, so nothing spicy, okay? Kisses." Something inside me broke a silent dam, releasing years of frustration, sacrifice, and neglect. It wasn't just the surgery. It was everything. Every time my well-being was set aside. Every time my pain was minimized. I typed a message to Rachel. "I need you. Now." An hour later, she walked in with hot tea and genuine concern written all over her face. "They expect me to cook Christmas," I said simply. She lifted the edge of my blouse to check on my stitches, still red and inflamed. "The surgery was only 2 weeks ago. You can't even stand for more than 10 minutes. I laughed, a bitter and strange sound. "Welcome to my life over the past 8 years. Rachel sat down beside me, holding my hands. "How long has this been going on?" "Forever." I lost count of the times I cooked while sick, feverish, medicated. One time I made Brian's birthday dinner with a kidney infection so severe that I ended up in the hospital the next morning. And what does Brian do when you're sick? Silence. The answer was there in the quiet. "I'm not doing it. I can't anymore." Rachel squeezed my hand. "Then don't do it. They're going to show up expecting a feast. Margaret will give that disappointed look. Brian will apologize for me like I failed." Rachel smiled, a dangerous twinkle in her eyes. "And what if they show up and find nothing? No dinner, no Sarah?" My heart raced. "What are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting it's time to give them exactly what they deserve." In the following days, between doses of painkillers and periods of rest, we developed a plan. Rachel helped me research every restaurant that would be open on Christmas Eve. We made a meticulous list: Chinese, Thai, pizza, burgers, everything that could be delivered. "Print the menu of each restaurant and put them up on the walls," Rachel suggested as she tapped away at her laptop. "And charge it all to Brian's card," I added, feeling a wave of satisfaction for the first time in weeks. Rachel smiled. "Sarah, this isn't revenge. It's poetic justice." While waiting for Christmas, I started another project. For years, I had kept evidence of all the treatment I endured. Text messages demanding dinners when I was sick, photos of me cooking with a fever, medical bills for conditions made worse by lack of rest. "Look at this," I showed Rachel, a voice message from Brian from 3 months ago. "Sarah, my mom's coming for dinner today. I know you've got a migraine, but could you make that chicken she likes? I don't want to disappoint her." And another from Margaret. "Sarah, dear, you always overreact." A little sore throat never killed anyone. The Wilsons' dinner is important for Brian's career. Rachel was horrified. How did you put up with that for so long? I took a deep breath. Little bit by little bit, you get used to the discomfort. It all becomes normal until something big happens, and you realize just how much you've sacrificed. I organized all the evidence in chronological order. I set up discrete cameras in the dining room and the kitchen not to spy, but to document their reactions when they found out there would be no Christmas dinner. What are you going to do with all this? Rachel asked, while looking at the folder I'd compiled. Make sure they understand why I did what I did, and if they try to make me out as crazy or ungrateful later, I'll have the proof. On Christmas Eve, Rachel arrived early. Brian had gone to pick up his mom at the airport. She always came a day early to supervise my preparations. Ready? Rachel asked, carrying bags filled with printed menus and tape. My heart pounded with a mix of fear and determination. I've never been more ready in my life. We worked methodically. Rachel hung the menus on the walls while I wrote the note I would leave on the dining table. My hands trembled, but my resolve was solid. Dear family, for years I prepared meals while sick, injured, and in need of care. Today, 2 weeks after a major abdominal surgery, I chose to put my health first. The menus on the walls are your dinner options. The deliveries are scheduled. Brian's card has already been charged. Merry Christmas. Sarah. Rachel glanced over my shoulder. Perfect. We finished setting everything up and I made the final delivery reservations by phone. Everything was scheduled to arrive 30 minutes after the dinner time. Are you sure you want to do this? Rachel asked as she carried my bag to her car. I looked at our house decorated for Christmas. The lights twinkled softly. The dining table, usually laden with dishes prepared out of sacrifice, now held only my note and a stack of medical bills. I just can't live like this anymore. I closed the door and didn't look back. The sun rose and with it, Christmas Day. I was staying in a peaceful chalet in Lake Tahoe, 3 hours away from home. Rachel had friends who rented the place and had managed to get a special discount for my emergency recovery, as she called it. I sat on the porch with a steaming cup of tea, watching the trees reflected in the clear water. For the first time in years, I didn't spend Christmas morning in the kitchen. I didn't wake up at 5 to start preparing the turkey. My hands weren't rough from peeling vegetables. And miraculously, the pain in my stitches felt less intense. My phone buzzed. It was a notification from the security camera app. Showtime. Brian was the first to arrive home after picking up guests from the hotel. I watched on my phone as he opened the door, carrying presents wrapped in shiny red paper. Margaret followed him, already chattering about something. Ashley, Nathan, Emma slipped in behind, all dressed in festive clothes. Sarah? Brian's voice echoed through the empty house. We're home. It smells great. There was no smell at all, of course. No aroma of roasting turkey or bubbling cranberry sauce, just the soft scent of Christmas pine that we'd hung up 2 weeks ago. Maybe she's resting, I heard Ashley say. I'll check the kitchen. The kitchen camera showed Ashley entering the immaculate room. No pots on the stove. No ready dishes. The counter was empty except for a bowl of fruit. Brian, Ashley's tone shot up. There's no food here. The living room camera caught Margaret walking into the dining room, where my note was waiting. Her eyes widened when she saw the menus covering the walls. What does this mean? She grabbed the note, scanning quickly through the words I had written. Brian snatched the paper from her hands. It has to be some sort of joke, he said, but his face made it clear he knew it wasn't. Menus on the wall? Margaret's fury was palpable even over the phone screen. Is this some kind of tasteless prank? Emma, the 14-year-old teenager, was the first to understand fully. Aunt Sarah ran away, she declared while flipping through the Chinese food menu with clinical interest. And ordered takeout for us. This is absolutely unacceptable. Margaret stomped her foot, her face turning red. After everything we've done for her. Brian tried calling my phone. I let it go to voicemail. He tried again. And again. Nathan discovered the pile of medical bills I'd left next to the note. Dude, Her surgery must have cost a fortune. So what? Margaret snatched the papers from his hand. That's no excuse for abandoning the family on Christmas. What are we supposed to eat? At that exact moment, as if the universe had a perfect sense of humor, the doorbell rang. The first delivery had arrived, Thai food for 6. Brian looked like a man in shock as he opened the door. I didn't order this. Delivery for Sarah. It's already paid for, tip included, the delivery person said, handing over the bags. Over the next 20 minutes, the scene repeated itself 3 times. Pizza, fried chicken, Mexican food, everything arrived in a perfect sequence like a 4-movement symphony of revenge. Ashley was the first to break, collapsing into a chair with hysterical laughter. She did it. Sarah has finally lost it. Margaret was furious, pacing around the dining room and tearing down the menus from the walls. I'm going to call her right now and demand that she come home. This is completely irresponsible. Brian sat silently with his elbows on his knees, his eyes locked on the note. He knew, I saw it in his eyes. He knew exactly why I'd done this. I closed the app and set my phone aside. I looked out at the shimmering lake as the sun warmed my face. For the first time in 8 years, I was exactly where I needed to be on Christmas, taking care of myself. At 2 p.m., exactly as planned, I sent out the emails, one for each family member, including Emma. Rachel, sitting next to me on the chalet's couch, squeezed my hand as I hit send. There's no turning back after this, she said softly. I don't want to go back, I replied, feeling a surprising certainty. The email was simple. Dear Brian, Margaret, Ashley, Nathan, and Emma. I hope you're enjoying Christmas dinner. I have attached a document for each of you. It contains evidence of what I have endured over the years: text messages, emails, recordings, photos, and medical records. This is not an act of anger, but one of self-preservation. For years, I sacrificed my health and well-being to meet your expectations. Today, I have finally chosen to put myself first. I will not be available over the coming weeks. I need this time to recover, not only from the surgery but from years of neglect and devaluation. Sarah. Along with each email, I sent personalized folders. Brian received recordings of himself demanding meals while I was crying out of pain. Margaret received photos showing me cooking with a fever, with visible bandages and taking painkillers while preparing her favorite dishes. Ashley and Nathan received screenshots of conversations where they ignored my medical condition while making specific dinner requests. For Emma, I sent something different, a letter explaining that healthy relationships are built on mutual respect and care, not on subservience. She is young. There is still hope for her. Do you think they'll read it? Rachel asked as she poured more tea for the 2 of us. Brian will read his. He's meticulous enough not to miss it. Margaret will probably ignore it. The truth doesn't fit her narrative. The others, I shrugged, might read it out of curiosity. My phone started buzzing continuously. Notifications piled up. Text messages, missed calls, reply emails. From Brian. Sarah, we need to talk. What you're doing is crazy. Come home now. From Margaret. This is emotional manipulation, dear. I am deeply disappointed in your childish behavior. From Ashley. Oh my God, you really saved all those messages? This is scary, Sarah. I know we have our disagreements, but ruining Christmas? Rachel leaned over and huffed. See how none of them even asked about your health? Not a single question about how you're feeling. She was right. Not one word of genuine concern. Just outrage about being exposed and inconvenienced. An hour later, Rachel's phone rang. It was Brian. She's with you, right? Let me talk to her. Rachel looked at me, questioning, and I simply shook my head. Sarah is resting, Brian. Following the doctor's orders that you and your family completely ignored. Don't try to paint me as the villain here. His voice boomed so loud I could hear every word, even without speakerphone. She abandoned the family on Christmas. My mom is devastated. Brian, Rachel replied calmly but firmly. Did you even read what she sent? Did you see the photos of her cooking 3 days after that concussion last year? Or listen to the recording of you saying she was overreacting when her appendix almost ruptured. Silence answered. Do you have any idea what her surgery involved? Rachel continued. They removed an organ, Brian. She has both internal and external sutures. She can barely stand for 15 minutes without pain. And yet, your main concern is that there was no Christmas turkey. Brian took a deep breath. When he spoke again, his voice was softer, less defensive, and more defeated. She's coming back home? Rachel looked at me. I shook my head slowly. Not anytime soon, Brian. She needs to figure out what she wants to do next. After Rachel hung up, my phone buzzed with a message from Emma. Aunt Sarah, I read your letter. I never realized how we treated you. Mom and Grandma are furious, but I think I understand why you did it. Hope you feel better. A small light of understanding emerged in the darkness of the family outrage. I smiled for the first time that day. For the next 3 days, the flood of messages continued. The strategy was clear. First anger, then guilt, then attempts at negotiation, and finally, veiled threats. Margaret led the charge. You are destroying this family with your selfishness. Brian is devastated. Is that what you want? To hurt your husband? Ashley alternated between indignation and false offers of reconciliation. We could have talked about this like adults, Sarah. It didn't have to be so dramatic. When you come back, we can have a girls' dinner and talk, okay? Nathan, always the most direct, was brief. Dude, that's such an exaggeration. Everyone gets sick sometimes. Brian, meanwhile, had switched tactics. His messages were studiously reasonable, almost as if he'd consulted a lawyer, which, I later found out, he actually had. Sarah, I understand that you need space, but we have bills to pay and decisions to make. We need to talk like adults about the future. Please call me when you're ready. On the 10th day after Christmas, Margaret appeared unannounced at my lawyer David's office. He called me immediately after her visit. Your mother-in-law is intense, he commented with a note of professional admiration. She tried to convince me that you were mentally unstable and that you should be evaluated by a psychiatrist before we proceed with any legal action. And what did you say? I told her to leave and suggested she get her own lawyer. He paused. Sarah, I've been reviewing the documents you sent, the medical records, the recordings, everything. You have a solid case of emotional neglect. If you want to move forward with the divorce, we're in a strong position. That's exactly what I want, I replied, surprisingly without hesitation. I want my life back. Early in February, snow fell and the first formal divorce hearing took place. I entered the courtroom through the side entrance, as David had advised, to avoid running into Brian or Margaret before it was time. Are you okay? Rachel asked as she squeezed my hand while we walked down the marble corridor. She had taken the day off just to be with me. I'm nervous but determined, I answered, adjusting the navy blue blazer I'd bought just for the occasion. My surgery scar was still tender, but the constant pain had finally eased. David met us in the conference room adjoining the courtroom. Brian is here with his lawyer. Margaret is here too, but she have to wait outside. He smiled slightly. Judges usually don't appreciate meddling mothers-in-law at divorce hearings. The first sight of Brian in nearly 6 weeks hit me unexpectedly hard. He looked thinner, with deep dark circles under his eyes and his hair less neatly styled than usual. For a moment, I felt a pang of guilt quickly replaced by the memory of all those times I was sick and vulnerable while he went on with his life. Sarah, he said softly when our eyes met. I nodded briefly and took my place beside David. Judge Hernandez, a middle-aged man with an unreadable expression, reviewed the preliminary documents. I see we're dealing with a litigated divorce after 8 years of marriage, with no children, disputes over assets, and allegations of cruel treatment by the petitioner. Brian's lawyer, a sharply dressed man named Martin Wells, cleared his throat. Your Honor, we would like to dispute the allegations of cruel treatment. Mr. Coleman acknowledges there may have been communication issues in their marriage, but he strongly denies any deliberate cruelty. Miss Coleman abandoned the marital home after a family disagreement and our client is mainly seeking reconciliation or, if that's not possible, a fair settlement. David calmly stood up. Your Honor, we have extensive documentation showing a consistent pattern of neglect regarding Ms. Coleman's health, including instances where she was forced to perform household tasks during her post-surgery recovery and during serious illnesses. We have medical records, testimonies from healthcare professionals, recordings, and written communications that clearly establish this pattern. The judge flipped through the documents, his face growing sterner by the minute. When he finally looked up, his gaze fixed on Brian. Mr. Coleman, I see here some deeply troubling evidence. Would you like to comment on this recording dated March of last year, where you apparently tell your wife to stop overreacting about abdominal pain that, according to the attached medical record, was a symptom of acute appendicitis? Brian paled. Your Honor, I had no way of knowing. And this other recording, just 3 weeks after Ms. Bezos Coleman's recent abdominal surgery, in which you insist that she should get over the pain to prepare a Christmas dinner for your family? Martin Wells quickly interjected. Your Honor, these recordings are out-of-context fragments of a broader conversation. Our client was under immense pressure from work and family obligations. We believe that with proper marital counseling— Mr. Wells, the judge interrupted, I see a consistent pattern here, not isolated incidents. I suggest you advise your client of the seriousness of this evidence before we proceed. The remainder of the hearing set the terms for the temporary division of assets and accounts. It was decided that I could continue residing in the apartment I had rented, with Brian covering the rent as part of a provisional alimony arrangement, while the house would be put up for sale and any profits divided according to a future court decision. As we left the courthouse, Margaret waited in the corridor, her face a mask of disapproval and indignation. Before she could approach, Rachel positioned herself between us so we could head to the elevator without a confrontation. This is just the beginning, David warned as we walked toward the parking lot. They will probably fight back. Get ready for them to try to discredit your testimony, question the seriousness of your health issues, and perhaps even suggest that you have a history of exaggerating your problems. I have more than a dozen doctors who can testify otherwise, I replied calmly, and scars that tell their own stories. That night, in my small temporary apartment, I found 3 voicemail messages from Brian. The first was angry. How could you expose me like that in court? The second was defensive. You're twisting everything. You never meant to hurt me. And the third, left after midnight, was almost pleading, Sarah, please, can we talk? Just the 2 of us, no lawyers. I'm sorry if I hurt you. Can we fix this? I didn't reply to any of them. The following weeks turned into a strange dance of legal communications, evaluations of assets, and endless negotiations. Brian alternated between attempts at reconciliation and intimidation tactics, a duality that only confirmed my decision. In March, I learned through Emma, who had become an unlikely ally, that Margaret was orchestrating a defamation campaign against me among friends and family, describing me as mentally unstable and manipulative. Grandma says you've always been too fragile and that Dad sacrificed so much to take care of you, Emma wrote. But that's not true, is it? I've never seen Dad taking care of you when you were sick. Your grandma is afraid, I replied carefully. Sometimes when people are too scared to face their own mistakes, they try to blame someone else. In April, Brian made one last desperate attempt. He showed up at my workplace with a huge bouquet and a brand new ring. My colleagues watched uncomfortably as he pleaded for another chance. I've changed, Sarah. I swear I've changed. I swear I've changed. I swear I've changed. I finished the therapy you always wanted me to do. I realized how much I hurt you. I looked at him, really looked, and saw not the man I once loved, but someone who only recognized my worth once I was no longer available. Brian, I'm glad you're in therapy. Truly, but I'm not coming back. Some things, once broken, just can't be fixed. Is it because of that stupid Christmas dinner? I still haven't gotten over how you humiliated us, but I'm willing to forgive. No, I interrupted firmly. It wasn't about the dinner, it was everything that led up to it. Years of feeling invisible and undervalued. Christmas was only the moment I finally saw clearly what our marriage had become. He left, dejected, leaving the bouquet at reception. I donated the flowers to the pediatric wing of the hospital where I had my surgery. 2 weeks later, Brian finally agreed to the terms of the divorce settlement. The house would be sold, the assets divided equally, and I would receive additional compensation for years of unpaid domestic services during periods of medical incapacity. A phrase carefully crafted by David to avoid admitting outright negligence. On May 15th, I signed the final divorce papers. As the pen slid across the paper, I felt an immense weight lifting as if a morning fog was clearing under the sun. "How do you feel?" Rachel asked as we left David's office. "Light," I replied. "Incredibly light." Summer brought new beginnings. The sale of the house was finalized in June, giving me enough capital to put a down payment on a small chalet on the outskirts of the city, ironically similar to the one where I had taken refuge on Christmas, but now all mine. My health had improved significantly. The scars from the surgery were now just rosy lines, and for the first time in years, I wasn't plagued by chronic pain worsened by stress and lack of proper care. In July, I received an unexpected invitation. Margaret wanted to meet to settle things. My first instinct was to refuse, but after reflecting and consulting my therapist, one of the best decisions I ever made, I decided to accept. I chose a neutral cafe downtown, arriving 15 minutes early to secure a table with a good view of the exits, a self-protective habit I had developed over time. Margaret arrived on time, looking smaller and more fragile than I remembered. I was surprised to see Brian with her, keeping a respectful distance behind. "Sarah," Margaret began as soon as she sat down without any preamble, "I want you to know that I still don't approve of how you handled everything. What you did at Christmas was cruel and unnecessary." I took a deep breath, reminding myself to keep healthy boundaries as my therapist had advised. "I understand that you felt hurt, Margaret. I never meant to cause pain, only to protect my health." For the first time, Brian spoke up. "I did many things wrong, Sarah. The therapy," he hesitated, "has been tough facing how I treated you, how I let my mom talk to you, how I ignored your needs for so long." Margaret looked uncomfortable as the conversation shifted. "We're here to talk about the family heirlooms that are with you. They've been in the Coleman family for generations, and—" "Mom," Brian interrupted firmly, "we're not here because of the heirlooms." An uncomfortable silence followed. Margaret adjusted her purse nervously. "I'm sorry, Sarah," Brian finally said. "Not to try winning you back or to change your mind about the divorce, but simply because you deserve to hear it. I was a terrible husband and a selfish person. I treated your health issues like an inconvenience instead of the serious conditions they were." Tears blurred my vision, not from regret, but from the long-awaited acknowledgement. "Thank you for saying that, Brian." Margaret seemed to struggle with herself, her face a mix of pride and something more complicated. "I suppose I have something to say too," she finally admitted, each word seeming painfully extracted. "I was overly demanding of you over the years. Perhaps I never respected your health limitations as I should have." Hearing that from Margaret felt almost like a full confession and an apology. "I appreciate that both of you came," I said calmly. "It means a lot to me." "You look well," Brian observed. "Healthy." "I am," I confirmed. "Better than I've been in a long time." After a few minutes of cautious conversation, we got to the true reason for the meeting. Emma wanted to visit me. Despite the divorce, she missed me and wanted to keep in touch. Brian and Margaret, after much family discussion, had agreed to allow it on the condition that I accepted. "She learned a lot from all this," Brian said. "About respect, about taking care of others. I think you made more of an impact on her than any of us." I smiled, genuinely touched. "I'd love to keep in touch with Emma. She's an amazing girl." We said our goodbyes cordially, with no hugs or false promises of future friendship, just a mutual acknowledgement that one chapter had appropriately ended. Watching them leave in the parking lot, I realized that the anger I had carried for so long had turned into something lighter, not exactly forgiveness, but a kind of peace. In August, my story somehow leaked to an online forum. Someone I'll never know who shared an anonymous version of the Christmas takeout incident, as it came to be known. The post went viral in only a few days, gathering thousands of comments from people who identified with my situation. The Christmas takeout revolution became a social media phenomenon, inspiring others to set healthy boundaries in abusive relationships. I received private messages from strangers sharing their own experiences of medical neglect by family and partners. In September, a women's magazine contacted me for an interview. After careful thought, I agreed not to expose Brian or his family, but to help others recognize the signs of abuse we often normalize in our society. What would you say to someone who's forced to put others' needs above their own health? The interviewer asked. I would say that you deserve the same care you give to others, I replied. That setting boundaries isn't selfish, it's self-preservation. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is simply say no. In December, as the first anniversary of the takeout revolution approached, Rachel and I planned a different kind of celebration. We invited a group of people, mostly women, who had been inspired by my story to change their own lives. Together, we prepared a big Christmas dinner. Isn't it ironic? Rachel joked as we set the table. After everything, you're cooking at Christmas again. I smiled, looking at the people chatting happily in my living room. The difference is, I'm doing it by choice, not out of obligation. And, I glanced at my watch, if at any point I feel tired or uncomfortable, everyone here will understand if I stop. The dinner was lively, joyful, and imperfect. Some recipes didn't turn out as planned. The turkey was a bit dry, and someone spilled cranberry sauce on the new rug, and it was absolutely perfect. As we raised our glasses in a toast, I looked around at the faces at the table, new friends, old friends, and even Emma, who had been given special permission to join. To health, I proposed. To the freedom of choice, and to setting boundaries. To the takeout revolution, someone added, triggering laughs. Later that night, after everyone had left and I was tidying up the kitchen at my own pace, I got a message on my phone. It was from Emma. Thanks for the best Christmas ever. Grandma and Dad send their regards. Yes, even Grandma. I think we all learned something last year. I smiled at the message, feeling a wave of gratitude for the perceptive young lady. Emma was becoming someone who, I hope, will never allow herself to be treated the way I was. I picked up a cup of tea and walked out to the back porch. The night was clear, with stars shining brightly over the freshly fallen snow. I took a deep breath of the cold air, savoring the fullness in my lungs. Subscribe to the channel and leave your like to get access to more stories like this. That Christmas a year ago marked a breaking point, the moment I finally said enough. But today, I realized it was also a rebirth. The beginning of a life where my health, my boundaries, and my self-worth were non-negotiable, and that, more than any material gift, was the true spirit of Christmas that I had finally discovered, the gift I gave myself, the right to fully exist on my own terms.